Hello, Steve White, Steve Arts 89. Well, I just found out something I never knew. Um, Kane Hodder did an interview with some podcast called, I think, Crypto Truth or something, and he was talking about, of course, the controversy over him not playing Jason in Jason versus Freddy. Um, and what he revealed is something that was really, really upsetting. Basically, like he had campaigned for years and kept, the flame alive for the Freddy versus Jason thing, and in all these convention appearances and stuff like that. And he'd been talking to the studios for years about it, and he was sort of seen as the definitive Jason Voorhees. He had been identified in that way now, whereas, his portrayal. I never found his portrayal particularly scary. I liked the other portrayals of Jason as more of just a shape or a zombie or something. He was a bit too animated, but he still was who we saw as Jason, and he'd done a good job being an ambassador for Jason and the franchise, and you felt like at least Jason was in good hands with him. But yeah, so basically they brought him in, invited him into the offices, handed him a script and said, it's happening, we're doing it. And he thought, I've got the role, this is great. They're finally doing Freddy vs. Jason, and I'm playing Jason, because he never assumed he would play Jason in any of the films because all the other actors had been replaced. And he'd been really lucky each time to get it. And he wouldn't have assumed. But in this case, they said he had it. They didn't sign a contract or anything, which he probably should have tried to do at the time. But yeah, he went away, and then not long after that, he found out they gave it to someone else. And it's just such a bitch move to bring someone in, give them something, and then take it away from them. It's so much worse than hoping you get something, then not getting it, because you never really get your hopes fully up because you sort of know not to. Particularly as an actor in Hollywood, you know, not to get too excited about. There's so many films and roles that people could have had and didn't have. So many stories of things, the way things could have gone. But yes, it's really disappointing to realise that they did that to him. And I understand in part now why he's still sort of got a bit of a grudge about it. And the other issue is like, why? Because there's two versions of the story. One is that the studio just didn't want him, and that was probably because they associated him with the decline of Friday the 13th, and if they wanted to go a different way with the character, he would have been very set in his ways of how Jason should be played, so he would have been difficult to manage. There's a bunch of reasons why they might have gone another way. His version of the story that he believes was just about money. Ken Krassinger, or whatever his name is, the stuntman who ended up playing Jason in Freddy vs. Jason, he lived in Vancouver. And they'd sort of been told that he already played Jason. So they got this stuntman who's already played Jason in Vancouver where they're filming the film. So why would they, pay Kane Hodder to go all the way from Hollywood to there and have to deal with his version of Jason and his ideas of Jason, when they could just get some stuntman to just do what he's told? So that's what they went with. That's what they did. And it's just really disappointing to hear that they did that to him. And I understand now why it upset him more. But what the other issue was, people blamed the director and said that, he wanted a different Jason. I don't think that was the case. I think the studio decided in the first place they didn't want Kane, and I think the director assumed he would have Kane just because that was who had been playing him. And then when he found out, he got kind of invested in the idea of casting someone bigger who could play that contrast between Freddy and Jason, because he wanted Freddy to be like a little troll and Jason to be like this big sort of Frankenstein figure. And even though Katzberg, or whatever his name is, only has like an inch on, or maybe 2 inches on Hodder, they really play that up with really high shoes with thick soles and everything. But the other thing is he didn't really play Jason really. I'd heard he played him in one scene where he falls on the train tracks and gets electrocuted. I'd heard that was the scene he did. But Kane said it was the scene where he got hit by the car. And I'm like, that's not what I heard. But you see him in the film, because he was a stuntman on the film, and you actually see Jason throw him across the bar in the bar in New York City, where he breaks through the door, and then the guy comes from behind the bar, and he throws that guy back over into the mirror, and then they run off to the subway and that. So that's him in the film. So we got to see him in the film without Jason makeup, and he also played Jason for at least one scene, maybe two, in the film. And Kane didn't consider that he played Jason just because he was him in a couple of scenes. I'm like, he kind of was. But then he pointed out with Freddy vs. Jason, the last shot that they reshot with Jason walking out of the water holding Freddy's head, which was an ambiguous ending where you sort of see like Jason won, but Freddy's still alive, so no one really won. And no one could, because if Jason killed Freddy, he'd just go back to the dream realm and be Freddy again. And if Freddy came into the real world and killed Jason, Jason would just come back to life again. So there was no winning, and anyone who thinks either one of those guys won is an idiot. But they replaced that actor as well. They got someone else to play that one because they probably filmed it in Los Angeles because it was a reshoot. And again, they just put money first. They just gave it to someone else. The last final shot, the iconic shot of him walking out of the water with Freddy's head, is played by some other guy. So, but yeah, it was just really sad to hear that they gave it to him and took it away from him, because I'd always heard he wanted it and didn't get it and was disappointed, but I'd never heard that he'd actually been told he had it and had it torn out of his hands, which is just so much more traumatic. But I'm going to go. Feel free to share, like, comment, subscribe. Let me know what you think of how, they handled this.